What if I told you there was a camera that could turn every one of your images into a still from a movie? This is the Hasselblad XPAN. The Hasselblad XPAN is a truly remarkable camera. Marketed as a panoramic camera, it shoots an image that's the width of two 35mm frames. It was initially designed by Fujifilm and released in 1998 in cooperation with Hasselblad. Fuji released the Fuji TX1, and Hasselblad released the XPAN, which essentially is just a rebranded Fuji TX1. And it's one of the best cameras I've ever used. The design of this camera is awesome looking. It has that same retro future Japanese tech feeling as the Contax cameras and its other semi-electric film cameras from the 90s coming out of Japan. Its operation is all electronic and uses a mechanically linked rangefinder with manual focus lenses, similar to a Leica. Because of its super wide aspect ratio, it feels very similar to the wide aspect ratios of the cinema world. And to be able to walk around with a camera that allows me to take images that feel like they're out of a movie is awesome. Being able to see the world in this wide aspect ratio changes how I think about taking images. The popularity for the XPAN and the TX1 exploded in the early 20s. Prices for this camera were at an all-time high at that time, in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. It is a camera that is very hard to get repaired and is an all-electronic film camera, so the possibility of components dying is very high. What makes this camera special is the image format is actually larger than 35mm. It takes 35mm film, but the image is actually closer to the width of two 35mm frames side by side. I have a video in the past where I made an anamorphic version of the Hasselblad XPAN using my Hasselblad 500cm and an anamorphic adapter that I machined. This camera isn't actually anamorphic. It uses spherical lenses that have a larger image circle than 35mm and crops the 65x24 out of that image circle. If you have an equivalent lens on a smaller sensored camera, you can actually reproduce these images identically. The 45mm f4 lens has a roughly equivalent of a 28mm f2.5 on full frame. You took an image and cropped it to the same field of view, your images will look identical. The only thing that you're losing out on is the higher resolution of a larger negative. One feature that I absolutely love about this camera, when you load film into the camera, it unloads the entire roll, and then when you take a picture, it feeds the roll back into the film canister. If you open the back by accident, you're not going to fog all of the exposures you've already taken. I don't know why this isn't the default for every film camera.
GX 需要您的支持，才能继续制作这些视频。当前的世界状况使人类和机器的生活变得艰难。众所周知， 在20年代初的全球芯片危机之后，人类面临着迄今为止最严峻的挑战。在您通过 Patreon 持续支持的情况下 ，GXX 将能够远离公司系统，并投入更多时间制作您喜爱的内容。顾客将可以访问独家幕后上传、现场直播、秘密的地下 Discord 服务器。每集的演职表中将有您的名字，您也将在每季度收到摄影作品的打印版本。谢谢大家，并在外面保持安全。
I love to take intriguing images that spark my curiosity as to what was going on in that moment that I captured. I like to look at them later and imagine what movie could these images have came from? What story can I make up behind these images? And this camera really enables me to do that on a whole nother level. Generally, I crop my images to a wide aspect ratio anyway, but to be able to view and see the world through that aspect ratio is an entirely different game. One thing I loved about the Fuji GFX cameras is that they offer an in-camera preview for the 65x24 crop from their Fuji TX1. So the GFX 100 that I had for a while, I had that constantly in the 65x24 crop mode. And just to be able to see the world that way through the viewfinder just makes a world of difference. That's why this camera is so amazing to me, because this is the type of photography that I live for. If you want your images to have a similar feeling as mine, head over to gxace.com and pick up my Lightroom preset packs. If you can't afford this camera, just pick up a 28mm lens and just crop your photos in Lightroom and you'll get an identical look. This camera embodies what I love about film cameras so much. Because film is such a versatile physical medium, the cameras that are available are so widely different from each other. With film, it was just a sheet of plastic with chemicals on it that could be cut into any shape and size. That led to so much variety in the number of cameras that are available that we don't see in the digital world. This camera is completely a product of its time. I don't think we're really going to see something like it again in the future.